Welcome to your first Latin class video. I'm starting with stage 1, obviously, on Latin word order and class labeling rules. I always like to start off my presentations with a little review and to make sure you know the English grammar that you're going to need to sort of understand where we're going with the Latin here. So let's talk about the English grammar. And we'll start with English word order. So English word order, this is the way that sentences go in English. You always have your subject first, your verb second, and then the stuff that's affected by your verb or your predicate. Sometimes I think in the terminology, predicate also includes the verb, but for this example, I'm separating the two out so you can see that there. Right, so the boy sees the dog. Boy is my subject. Sees is my verb because it's my action. Dog is my predicate. It's the thing being seen, right? In this case, it's a direct object specifically. So this breaks down, you can break it down to subject, verb, and then a prepositional phrase, or subject, verb, and then a direct object. So for example, the dog is in the kitchen. So verb, subject is dog, verb is, prep phrase is in the kitchen. Or you could say, the dog sees the ball. The subject is dog because he's doing the action. The verb is the action, sees, and then the thing being seen is the direct object, the ball. We'll talk about this a little bit more in a moment. So you have the boy sees the dog. And you can see I've circled the word sees and underlined the word dog. And this is part of our class labeling rules that we'll talk about in a moment. And here's one with a prep phrase. The boy is in the garden. Boy is underlined as my subject. My prepositional phrase is bracketed. And then my verb is circled. Here we have the boy sees the dog. All right. General Latin word order is a little different. Latin word order, of course, doesn't have set rules, so you can actually change the word order, but there is some patterns that it tends to follow. And so these are what we call our normal Latin word order would be. Subject will go first. It's usually the first word. And of course, it's the thing doing the verb. And for my class, I want you to underline your subject once. That way I know that you know that it's a subject. A direct object is usually after the subject. It's the thing that the verb happens to. And in my class, I want you to underline it twice. The predicate nominative is a little fancy sounding, but nominative just means subject. Predicate means after the verb, right? So it comes after a linking verb specifically. Linking verbs are is, was, where, those kinds of verbs. And it describes the subject. And you underline it once, just like you do with the subject, because it can actually be interchangeable with the subject. And I'll talk about this a little later on. Prepositional phrases usually come after a preposition. Right, it's in the name. You put it in brackets, and again, I'll talk to you a little bit more about what a prepositional phrase is and how you recognize those. And then verbs are usually the end of the sentence. Linking verbs are the exception for this. They often come in the middle of the sentence. Sometimes, if they're feeling very tricky, they might show up at the beginning of the sentence. And verbs show an action or a state of being. Right, so the boy sees the dog, sees an action of seeing. Mrs. Perry is the teacher, is my state of being, right? I'm a teacher even if I'm sitting at home reading a book, I'm still a teacher. And you circle verbs for my class. There are other parts of speech and things we'll be dealing with, but we'll address those as we come up upon them. So prepositions, a little more about those. Prepositions' fancy definition is they show the relationship between two nouns. I've heard them taught several different ways. My Latin teacher taught me it's anything a squirrel can do to a tree. It can go up the tree, down the tree, around the tree. It can be in the tree, near the tree, by the tree. I had a language arts teacher who taught me it was anything a plane could do to a cloud. It can go through the cloud, around the cloud, under the cloud, over the cloud. And I've always been rather fond of what my Greek professor taught me, which is anything a man can do to a lion. Of course, and that includes being in the lion, right? So these are just some examples of prepositional phrases, and you'll get more comfortable with them as we use them in class. So let's talk about linking verbs then. Linking verbs show a relationship between the predicate and the subject, and that should be one word for relationship, but it is not, so ignore that, please. It links the subject, hence the term linking verb, right? They link the subject with more information, and they identify a relationship or a state of being, which is a fancy way of saying that the linking verb tells you more about the subject by using information in the predicate. The most common linking verb is to be in English. It's irregular, so think of how we say it. I was, I am, you are, he is, right? So it's a little irregular. It's irregular in Latin too, so I guess that's a nice way to help you remember that. But I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, y'all are, they are. All right, so exemplum gratium, I am a teacher. So here we have my linking verb, my subject, I, and my predicate, nominative, teacher. And it's called a predicate nominative, again, because it's a nominative case. We'll talk about what that means later on in the predicate. But you could reverse that. I am a teacher, I am. Sounds a little weird, but you can do it. We are learning. You are a student. Y'all are smart. And yes, I use y'all as the second person plural in here. Tony Stark is Iron Man. They are the Avengers, right? So you have these linking verbs, and then you have a subject and then a predicate nominative on the other side of it. So let's talk a little bit about our linking verb, our main linking verb in Latin, which is est. And pretty much all the linking verbs in Latin are compound forms of est. So they're est plus another ending on the front, a prefix. Est is the present active indicative, third person singular of sum, and if that doesn't mean anything to you yet, which it probably does not, don't worry, we'll learn what that means. It translates as it is or just is, and is a linking verb. Latin sentences with est are often translated in the same word order as English, which makes them nice and easy to translate. And then the word after est is what we call the predicate nominative. So some examples for you. Metella est mater. So here's my est. That's my linking verb. Metella, subject, is linking verb, the mother. So let me circle my verbs, right? Est, mater, metella is the mother. So some more examples here, right? The one we just did. Metella est. Mater is that predicate nominative example of the linking verb. Metella is the mother. Here's another sentence, though, it's a little different. Metella spectat is my verb. Cocum is my direct object, so I'm going to underline it twice. Metella sees the cook. Now, normally you'd expect that verb to be bloop over here at the end of the sentence. But again, Latin word order is very flexible. They can move around. And then finally, we have metella in autrio. In is a preposition in Latin, just like it is in English, right? It means the same thing. It means in. Isn't that nice? So we bracket our prep phrase. We circle our verb. Metella sits in the atrium. If you're not ready to do all this yet, don't worry. I don't expect you to be. We're going to practice this a lot more as class continues. And that is the end of our first video. You survived. Congratulations.